Hi guys, this is Helen Lombardi. Welcome to the Money Healer Show. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and to Cafe TV Club, and you'll see the code in the monitor soon. And welcome today. We're going to have an amazing topic. It's been a while since I've been wanting to talk about this, actually more than a year. And it's so exciting to finally be here talking about this. And I'm talking about money and couples. So, love and money, perhaps, right? And talking about money with your significant other, because there's so many emotions, so many feelings about it, can be a little tricky, can be a little complex, and you can have a lot of emotions, whether they're negative or maybe not so good, and it's a point of conflict. So here we are today. We are going to talk about money and couples. And the first thing that I want you to have in consideration, we are going to come from a neutral point, meaning we are going to talk about this from a point where you both feel hurt. So you both are stating your points, and you both are stating why you feel the way you feel about money, right? Because I can have one way of thinking about money doesn't mean that I'm right. And because you or the other person, the husband, boyfriend, fiance, have a different perspective of money doesn't mean they're also right. And now, two wrongs don't make it right either. But let's go to a common ground, meaning, what do we want in the future to be our financial life like? We want to travel, we want to go to nice places, we want to get married one day, we want to have a home one day, we want to expand into a family, we want to invest. What is that common goal that you both have, right? So we're going to think of that for a second. Think of that goal. I want a home one day. The other person wants a home one day, but we both go out every weekend and spend all the money. How is that getting us to that common goal? It's not. It's not getting us to that common goal. And thinking that, having that clear, right? We say we want to invest money, but we're spending every single dollar that comes in. How is that aligning with what we're saying we want? It's not. Now, one main thing that you have to take in consideration when talking about money, you're going to go and define your spending habits. What are your spending habits, right? And the spending habits, they come with your money scripts. Do you know what money scripts are? Okay, so there are 4 points of money scripts. There is avoidance, there is worship, there is status, and there is vigilance. Each point of them have a little story. And in each story, they say something about the person, whether it's from their past experiences or their childhood. All those form today's points of view with money, right? That it's a behavior part of money, right? The other point that you have to take in consideration, it's if there was any trauma with money in your past. Perhaps a person got to a certain point and lost everything. They are going to be, hesitant and afraid of that happening again. So you have to understand the other person's story with money, because understanding that story with money will help you come together. Okay? So the other point, it's very important and to take in consideration, it's love languages with money. Why? Because it helps you understand also how you spend this money. Okay? The love languages. I mean, I can tell you there is people that in the love language, they love to buy presents for everybody, and that's where their money go, right? And they love presents. They want also presents. And you have to be both in the same page, because if not, that's going to constantly create conflict, and it's not going to change overnight. You're not going to agree on money overnight if you don't address these points. Okay? Another great source of conversation, even though it's not an easy conversation, will be if there is any debt before entering into a marriage. You need to know that. You need to know if you both have debt and then you get married. 10 plus 10, it's 20. Now you don't only have 10, now you have 20. So you have to understand how much debt, because you will be held accountable as well, right? And it's very important to understand that. Okay. Another source of communication also, it's defining a common goal that it's short term, and other goals are long term. Okay. Short term could be that you want to travel, that you want to have a trip together, and then you get all the money for the trip before the trip. That's a short term goal. Another goal that it's long term, right, can be buying a home together. You save, you get your stuff together, and then you purchase the home. It might sound easy, but what happens when one person is better with money than the other person? Right? One person is building, and then the other one, it's basically tearing down what the other person is doing. You don't want that, because you're not going to get anywhere, right? You want to be in the same page. When you're in the same page, you most likely are able to get to the goal. But if one person is better than the other person with money, you have to recognize where your strengths are. So if you're not great with managing the money, maybe you're great at other things. Maybe finding activities that are not as expensive if you are in that phase of saving money. Maybe you are better being resourceful, right? So you still work as a team. No matter in what stage, you still work as a team. Okay? So do you know also if your husband, fiancé, or boyfriend, it's in what script of money as well? When I mean script, and I mentioned them before, when we talked about avoidance, we talk about worship, we talk about status, and we talk about vigilance. You have to know what script they have, and you have to know your own script as well. Meaning, am I in avoidance? Meaning, I avoid looking at my bills. I avoid looking at my credit card bill. I avoid to be accountable with my own financial decisions. I avoid taking financial decisions. And that is huge, because financial decisions that you avoid making, you most likely you want to blame somebody else. So if you're married and you're not taking financial decisions either, you can be like, oh, I didn't know what was happening. So you were in avoidance, but it's easier to blame somebody else for the decisions that you didn't make, but you did make a decision. You give the decision to someone else for your finances, and then you said, oh, I didn't know, but that was a decision as well. You have to be conscious, right? Another one, are you in maybe vigilance? And vigilance can be great, but everything in excess, it's not so great. Because vigilance, when you're in vigilance, you don't sometimes are aware that you are missing the part of also enjoying your money. You cannot be so extreme about tying money so hard that it's like suffocating, because money has to flow. So being too vigilant with money to extreme that you're not enjoying your life because you're afraid that any time it might go away, it's not a good money vibe. I tell you that. So it has to be a balance. You have to find a beautiful balance, like a marriage, like couples, you engage, you are going to become a marriage. And this is number one subject, one of many, but one of the top ones, why couples fight or get divorced. So this is why it's so important to have these conversations. You need to understand why your significant other has certain spending habits, why your significant other thinks or approach money the way they do, without judgment, understanding it. You need to know what is your significant other financial situation. Because all of a sudden, when you are married, it's not a miracle, everything's going to be fine and you're going to pray and it's going to be fine. No, it takes work. It takes a lot of work. So it takes two, right? And I remember from my own experience, I hated talking about money. It was such a low vibe, I said. I was on avoidance at that time, right? And I avoided the conversation, of course. I will not be like, oh, I want to talk about this. When was it a good time to talk about money? Even though, ironically, at work, I talked about money all day long. But I didn't want to talk about my money because that was just boring. I didn't want to face the truth, which was I was overspending, right? I was not being conscious of my ins and my outs. And that's important. You have to know as a couple what you're bringing in, but also what's going out, right? Have a account for both of you guys. And then if you agree that the best is that I keep one for me and then you keep one for you, where you do your personal spending and those parts, perfect. There are many marriages that have just one account, right? And that it's savings and checking. Well, two, but one for both of them. And then that's it. And that's okay. There's no right or wrong. Whatever works for you. This is just a opinion and what have worked for me. And also to bring out that there's so many people that avoid the conversation because it's so uncomfortable. And I'm just trying to bring perspective so you have the conversation and it's not so heavy from a different understanding, not like, why you spend these on Amazon, why you spend these on shoes, or why you are driving this $6,000 car payment, right? Or why you bought this $1,000 pair of shoes, right? All these things, okay? But you have to be aware that you're a team, because if not, this is not going anywhere, and then it's going to get so heavy one day. What if one of you guys lose a job? And we don't go to extremes, but sometimes things change. Or what about if you grow your family, or if you want to buy a home together, or invest it? If we talk about growth, if we talk about growing together, or you want to renew or do a renovation in your home, takes money. If you're spending it all, then you're not going to have any money for that. So it's very important, right? And also, super important to take in consideration that there are different times in the relationship as well. At some point, maybe your priorities are to travel, and another point, it's not. Another point, it's you want to remodel the kitchen, as we were talking about renovations. Another point is you want to invest in a second property, maybe, or you want to do other things. But you have to check your priorities. And with priorities, I'm talking about values, right? I'm talking about values, what I value and what you value. It's going to show in my money. It's going to show in what I'm doing with my money. You can't deny it. Okay? So I want to bring light into this conversation. Also, what I can suggest is that maybe you can set it like a date night, right? Have some coffee and have some water. Have some coffee or wine, whatever it is, right? Or hire somebody that can help you get into a neutral place. No, I'm right, you're wrong. None of that. I'm sorry. None of that. None of that, like, I must be right and you must be wrong. There's no right and wrong. But numbers won't lie. You want those numbers to be on your favor, and you want to be able to prosper, right? That's the goal, that you both are able to have a solid foundation with financial security as well. That you're protected, right? Both should have life insurance, God forbid. And when I was talking before about values, it's so important, because how many times I've seen these? Someone driving a crazy expensive car and then their family are not protected with life insurance. This has to be said. What are the priorities there? Because life insurance would be cheaper than that car. Can you drive a less flashy car and make sure that your family is protected? For sure. But we go back to values, and that's why you as a woman also have to be involved in the finances. And if you don't know how and you already are in that situation, best place to start is to get knowledge. So then you have knowledge. No one can take away knowledge, and you can learn that. You can hire somebody, you can hire a coach, right? There's so much information right now, and information and knowledge are power to you, right? The same as a husband too, right? It's important that you're both in the same page, right? If you're struggling right now, whatever it is, have the conversation with your significant other, or if it's harder for you at this point, have that conversation. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? So I will love to add that you should at least once a month have a money date. And if you can once a month, then every other month. And it doesn't have to be heavy. It can be like, okay, let's see how we're doing. What's going on this month, right? A joke, are we eating lobster or are we eating tuna? Right? Like, what is the situation this month, right? Like, you have to have that clear. That conversation can change your life, because living as a couple or relationships, they require work. And if you don't have the financial part together, because it can be challenging, it is challenging, then you're only making your life harder. The other person's not gonna overnight change their opinion about how they do their finances. If I'm a spender, and my other person it's not, obviously that's going to create friction. That it's going to create so much friction, because I see the other person wasting money and I'm not. So that's going to create friction. If the other person understands why I do what I do, if I understand why the other person does what they do with their money, there might be a little room for empathy and understanding and coming to the same common goal, right? And I know it sounds beautiful, it sounds easier. I know it's not. Someone's going to say the wrong thing, someone's going to say something triggering, but you have to understand why that even bothers you, or why the other person is saying that or getting defensive. That also is a big part of it. There's so many feelings about money that we sometimes don't know they're there, that when we start talking about money with someone else, right, we feel so vulnerable, and they touch parts of us that we didn't know were there. So a lot of stuff is going to come out. You're going to feel less than. Now you're going to feel like you're not my parent. Or vice versa, you're not my parent, or I'm not your parent. We're going to project. We're going to mirror. A lot of stuff is going to come out. And you have to be aware that, okay, might happen, but you have to get up again and try again. Not because we fought about it or argue about it once means that we're not talking about money ever again. Because that is the worst thing you can do. Now you can create a whole, project on how to approach it. And guess what? This is not the only relationship you might have a difficult time about approaching finances. Could be with your parents, could be with your children, could be with your siblings. So see, even if you have a difficult conversation with your significant other about money, doesn't mean that it's only with them, because it will go into other relationships too, that uncomfortability about talking about money. I know from experience, right? And guess what happened? When you don't have those emotions about money clear, those emotions take over, and then you take everything so personal. And you have to learn to separate that. Okay? So understand your spending habits if you are talking about money with your significant other. Okay? Understand their money story, their money scripts. Understand their love languages for money too. And understand their money mindset as well. It's very important, as you have to understand your own money mindset too. Okay? If you're talking about money with a loved one, separate the emotions that you feel about money before that. So you don't end up in a sticky conversation where you might offend someone or you get offended, and then instead of accomplishing one goal, which is delivering the message of the conversation, you end up all upset. It's very important. Okay, so couples and money has a huge broad depth and so many subjects within. A lot. I hope I have helped you somehow, right, to bring this conversation into topic. And if your significant other doesn't want to talk about money, or it's hard for them to talk money, then make it easier for them, right? How can you make it easier? I told you, do a date, right? At home. You don't have to go to a restaurant. You can do it at home, have some wine, right? And then say, hey, I was thinking maybe we start seeing, our bills or what's going on with our finances, right? Because you don't want to wait till it's too late to go and revisit this. You want to do it from the beginning, so you know what you're getting yourself into. So when you do the money date and the other person gets a little defensive, always remind them of the goal. And there is okay to take a break as well. You don't have to have the whole conversation in one day. You can revisit it. You can be like, okay, we're not talking about it now. We can talk about it another time. right? And if the other person refuses, then you're gonna have to have some serious conversations about these, because these can make a relationship break or not. It is important. Money, it's a very important part of the relationship. Okay? Don't put it on the side, because it's important. And so today it's a topic of money and couples and money. I hope you had enjoyed this show. Today was a short version, because I wanted to be a little more easier to watch, and you guys can just take information from the show. And I hope to see you next week on Tuesday at 1 o'clock on CafeClub TV. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you for tuning in. This is Helen Lombardi at Money Healer Show. Thank you.
Cinemark presenta Los Antiguos.
Mi amor, llegamos primeritos. Ponte a la fila para que nadie nos quite el puesto.
Ya, perfecto, pero verá, usted vaya a ver los afiches para ver qué película escogemos.
No, mi amor, mejor le preguntamos la sinopsis a la chica de la taquilla.
Es una genia.
No seas antiguo, actualízate. Compra tus boletos y snacks en nuestra web cinemark.com.es o descargando la app. Preventas, estrenos, carteleras, promociones y más. Aprovecha nuestros beneficios online, más fácil, más rápido y con el 50% de descuento en boletos de lunes a viernes. Cinemark, lo mejor que le pudo pasar al cine. Aplican restricciones.